The first question for this Tutorial Tuesday comes from my friend Ty, and he asks, how do I get the most out of an hour-long photo shoot? And the number one answer is relationships, and number two answer is excitement, and I'll go into those in the very next segment. It's a good thing that nobody's asking me how many times it takes me to record these things. With relationships and excitement on your photo shoot, you want to build on an already established relationship because it's likely you already know the person there. If you don't, it's probably a friend of a friend. Building on that relationship allows you to be more comfortable and your subject to be more comfortable as well. If it's a cold contact, in other words, somebody just comes into the studio or somebody hires you just to go out on a photo shoot, you're trying to establish those relationships. When I'm talking about excitement, what I'm talking about is investing the subject into the excitement as well. So when I find a unique pocket of lighting or something like that, I want to invest my client, I want to invest my subject in that as well. You know, to be honest with this question, I don't do anything. I usually have people behind me that are jumping up and down, or they're doing jumping jacks, or crushing beer cans to try and get the horse's attention. So for me, I rely on the people that are behind me. There's one more thing that I need to address here, and that's sending out a huge thank you to everybody that is in the background hopping up and down, the moms and the dads, the brothers and the sisters, because without them, I don't get these. I don't use back button focus. I use Canon products, so I use AI servo at times, but more than not, I use manual focus. Although I'm not a mirrorless shooter, I use a DSLR, Canon in particular. I've heard great things about the Sonys, I've heard great things about Olympus, and I've heard great things about Fuji. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't also add to this question developing yourself, developing your eye, developing your compositional technique and color harmony and things of that nature. But you can go down, spend $600 to $800 and get yourself a kit camera. In addition to those big box stores and going and buying yourself a kit camera with a couple different lenses, you can also look at buying used equipment on places like Adorama or B&H or KEH.com. This is a really good question. In my experience, no, it doesn't. I used Canon's 5Ds, the 12.8 megapixel cameras, for years. I even used them with my 70-200 version 2 lens and didn't notice anything drastic at all. For those that can't make my workshop, I also offer online mentoring, and then I also do private weekends as well. So if you want to learn more about that, just DM me and I'll send you the details. This question made me laugh, and it's not much of a question, but you're welcome to ask anything you'd like, and it doesn't have to be just one thing. The number one answer here is buy a tripod. That'll give you the maximum amount of stability while also maintaining that clear, sharp image that you're looking for. And number two is tuck your arms in tight when you're holding on to your camera and brace it from underneath. Thank you for the compliment. I really do appreciate that. I'm located up in Salt Lake City, and my pricing is dependent on what you want. So if you go ahead and DM me, we'll see if we can work out some details. Look forward to it. This is a really good question. What's my favorite print on my wall? To answer that question, I'd have to tell you about my prints. My prints remind me of being there in the moment, and they remind me of the emotion that I was feeling as well. So a favorite one, I'll show you. My prints remind me of being in the moment, being there as these things happened. But my favorite one, definitely that one right there of my wife. This is always one of my favorite questions that are asked. My wife and I started our business 10 years ago. We're both 100% self-employed, and I looked at photography not as a hobby but as a source of income. And I'll go into my inspiration on the next video. The inspirational side of photography for me goes pretty deep, so we'll make a couple videos out of that. As a small child, my mom would take me to the library, and I'd read National Geographic and Life and other periodicals like that. When I would read these magazines or more or less look at the pictures, I would wonder what it felt like being in those pictures, what the gravel road felt like on the kids' feet, or what it smelled like being in that picture. It wasn't necessarily the composition of it. Much later on in life, I can look back and I can say, easily that I was inspired by those magazines and the images that were portrayed, especially the ones that come through conflict like war, and I take that style into my own style. This is a really great question. It's fundamental to running your photography business. I use a Dell XPS desktop. It's hooked to two 22-inch monitors. I also have 5 external hard drives, and then I also have a MacBook Pro laptop as well. I couldn't get away from this question without emphasizing the importance of having redundancy in your backup. So if you're saving your pictures on your hard drive, make sure you copy them to an external hard drive. If you have them on an external, put them on another external. You don't want to lose it. This question comes from Kate up in Montana, and she asked, how do you stay connected with your subject while trying to figure out your exposure settings? And I'll go into this a couple different areas in the next video. My first challenge was that darn exposure triangle, that aperture, shutter, and ISO, and trying to figure out what each one meant and how I applied it to every situation I was in. Once I got past that, then I was able to shoot intuitively on manual. The next challenge after shooting in manual was adding in a strobe and figuring out balancing ambient light with the artificial light and everything that came with that. Now, that can be overwhelming, especially when you first start. Something that I do actually goes back to the original question that Ty asked, and that's how to get the most out of a shoot. But when I have the subject with me, I invest them into the pictures that I've already taken, and that gives me time to go through the settings as well. This next question comes in from Shayna, and she says that she has limited lenses and she struggles with choosing the right lens. Now I'll go into that on the next video. There are a number of things to factor in when choosing your lens. For me, probably the first thing that I think of is how close do I need to be with my subject. With the wide-angle lenses like an 18-55 or a 16-35, it puts you very close to your subject. When I choose between my long lens and my short lenses, what I'm really asking myself is what kind of story do I want to tell? If you look at this image right there, that's a wide-angle branding image versus a long lens right there. Thank you for this. TV show? Probably not, but who knows? You should see how many outtakes I have. Deleting videos and re-recording them. Oh my God, this is crazy. Lighting equipment that I like the best are my Palsy Buff Alien Bees. I've used these for nearly 10 years. I've never replaced the flash tube in them, and they've held up really well. They've been knocked over, not kicked or stepped on, but they've held up. The best part to these lights is, besides being durable, they're really inexpensive. This one costs about $280, and this one costs about $225. So low impact on your budget, but high impact on your overall images. Is there a big difference between the Mark III and Mark IV? No, it's a little difference. The difference is 1. All right, come on. Bad joke. Between the 3 and 4, yeah, the features that I like about the 4 I'll get into on the next video. Before I give you the differences between the 3 and the 4 that impact me and the way I shoot, you need to understand that I've shot with the Canon 5D, the 5D2, the 5D3, and the 5D4, so I do notice quite a bit of difference. With the 5D3 and the 5D4, my primary body is the 5D4, but my backup is the 5D3. I use a 16-35 on the 3, and I use the 70-200 on the 4. Now the 5D4 comes with a 30 megapixel sensor, and the 5D3 had a 22 megapixel sensor, so quite a bit of a jump in these two cameras, but I'm not one that chases megapixels, so that wasn't a factor for me. One thing that I also found very valuable on the Mark IV was the addition of the anti-flicker technology, which helps you to a certain degree balance out your exposures when you're shooting in arenas and things like that. On the downside of the anti-flicker technology, what that does is reduces the frame rate on your camera. So while the 5Ds aren't known for their super fast speeds of like 6 or 7 shots per second, it can still be prohibitive. The final thing here for the Mark IV versus the Mark III that was important to me was a greater expansion of the automatic focus system that's in the 4. Now I have greater latitude for achieving focus that I couldn't get on the Mark III. In the Mark IV, Canon added the Wi-Fi capability that allows me to download directly from my camera to my phone an image and share it, via AirDrop with someone that I'm working with immediately. I find that pretty valuable. Yes, I absolutely will save all these, and I'll put them all together and put them in a blog for you. I wasn't exactly sure where you're going with this, but as far as the equestrian world, I've covered all events from dressage to hunter jumper to the AQHA shows and kind of everything in between. Hey, you're very welcome. Thanks for watching. I honestly don't know how you guys keep up because I find it very difficult to keep up with videos, but I'll do my best to keep these coming to you.